they have other people with them, they can do status reports and put everybody on there, but it's still one person that you're able to communicate your issues with, or the things, the timelines and things that you need to do with that person. Because getting a new person up to speed, if that person that's your regular day-to-day contact is not available and they just move you to somebody else, like their assistant or something, you could lose that communication in the process. If you're really doing something pretty involved, a new product introduction, that's very crucial. They're all crucial, but really look at experience and try not to be this vendor's guinea pig. If you see that they've never done, some project as big as yours, again, if you can start with a small project, try that. If you can't, then probably go on to the next person. And you're also reviewing the vendor's work, so you know if they're going to be in that experience or they're going to have the experience that you're looking for. On the same vein, confirm who'll be doing the work. Sometimes I'm hired as a marketing consultant, and I'm very upfront with what vendors or what people I'm using that I might bring in that project. And confirm for yourself who's going to be doing the work. Some of the clients that I work with don't really care. And I guess if the project is successful, that's fine. I tend to care just because I want to know where this project is going. And when I work with very confidential information, I really want to know where it's going and how's it being parceled out and the kinds of things like that could be a confidentiality issue. Another issue is when a consultant's hired and they hire a team. I don't do this, but when they hire a team, they might expect that each of those vendors is going to send you an invoice separately, which can get very, number one, confusing. Number two, can add costs. So you want to really, I do up front, say if you're hiring outside vendors, then and other outside resources, that invoicing comes through one party and it is already in the estimate. It isn't a separate cost. As I just said a little while ago, test if you can. Maybe you want to hire a copywriter, but you want to maybe hire them for one blog post or one piece of work rather than hiring them on a yearly contract. And you try and see how it works. Or I just recently tried a new transcriber. So rather than saying, I want you to transcribe all my podcasts for the next 3 months, I said, let's try one. And it's just kind of a trial thing. And that way you can tell whether you feel that it's going to work, or if there are reservations, can you talk about those reservations? Or you can also see if it's not going to work. Because it's in your best interest to really make sure that this runs as smoothly as you can. You'll have enough things with a project that can go wrong, or things in the environment, or things with your marketing environment, or things in the world that happen. And so it's best if you can try and keep your project, things that are systems and things in your project, and keep them on a very basic level so that you're not dealing with those kinds of issues that you don't have to. Now, by this point, you've agreed to a budget. And again, a budget can change. And I have had clients make big changes and expect the budget to stay the same. In the beginning, you need to say exactly what this budget covers. If there are additional changes, then those will be additional change orders or change costs. And you need to let the client know ahead of time. That's what I would tell the vendors, that this cost is coming. And do they then they can make a decision of, do they want to do it or do they not want to do it? So it is more in their hands to control that purse strings. I also always look for checkpoints. Some of the clients I've worked with just want to hand over the project and be done with it and let it go and come back when it's done. I have found that to be, have some problems with it, because you can think you know exactly what it's going to look like, because in your head you've got this certain thing that you see. But when you actually see the project, if you've waited till the very end, it may not at all be what you're looking for. So I would say that periodically, I do status meetings once a week. But again, it very much depends on your projects. You can do that more often. If you're doing something really on a fast track, you may want to have a meeting every day at the beginning of the day. So you want to really be sure that you're not surprised. And again, make very clear with the vendor or the consultant that if there is a project change and it results in a cost change, that they are allowed to make that decision before you spend the money. I stay involved in the projects just in order to keep things on more of a course. And then when there are course corrections, they can be made very quickly and more in a time frame that works within that project. The other part here is a final product ownership. And that, to me, to a degree, I think of illustrators, I think of photographers, and there are other people too, where you would want to know what your ownership is. Music. Do you own that piece of music for everything that you want to use it for? You don't even know yet where you're going to use it. Did you buy it outright? The photography, did you buy outright? I generally buy photography and music outright. It can be more expensive, but it's easier than having to go back and forth when you want to change and then renegotiating how much it's going to cost for that particular piece. With photography, I really only do that if it's a photos shoot that it's going to be used long term. There are photo shoots, new product introduction. You might only use one of those, photos for a long period of time. It might be just that photo or fashion shoot, even fashion shoot, you probably next year are not going to be using that same fashion. You're going to be doing something else. So how much timeline do you need for those particular ownership rights? Also define upfront what you expect as ongoing support. Now that has more to do with website development. In this COVID-19, we're seeing a huge drop or huge increase in online buying. And so if you're doing your site, which I did during this COVID-19 era, I worked with a designer and developer to redo my site, and I negotiated ongoing support for at least the next 6 months, so that when I work with the site, maybe I need some additional education. Maybe something that's in there doesn't work properly and I need to have them redo it. Or maybe something, when I look at the analytics, isn't producing the way I want it to produce. So I want to still keep working with them. And then also there's technical issues. Maybe an update messed something up or something like that. So it's keeping a way to have just a cushion there of technical support or some support for a period of time. I use a formal contract. I recommend my clients do. I generally do the contracts if they don't have them. And I get pretty much everything I can in writing with dates and signatures from the clients or all the, people who are going to be involved in that particular project. My contract has a scope on the first page, the scope of the projects. It very generally it lists the deliverables, the agreed to budget, schedule, and then I ask the consultant or vendor to also give me a deliverable timeline. So rather than just, we will have it done at such and such a time, there are steps involved. So the first draft, for maybe it's copy, first draft will be done on certain date. I expect it to be done and I'd see it on my desk unless told otherwise that there was a change because there was something else happened that changed that direction. Keep a record of all your interactions, as well as your agreement, but save emails, texts, voice messages, just so they're there. And so you can see, sometimes someone will feel like they gave some instruction and it never came through, or it wasn't really clear, or there was a misinterpretation. Communication is really a key factor here, as it was with so many things. So that's why I do regular update meetings. I keep emails, and I'm diligent about reading them and going through them so I understand, I believe from my end, what's being done. It's also a way to go back if something happens in the project, and I hope it doesn't to you, but something happens that kind of made it a little messy, and then you have some proof that it was, in fact, something was said or something wasn't said. I think keeping really open communications, you've chosen the best person you know of. And you're going to keep open communications with them or that team that you've hired. You're going to go along and have them be very open with what's happening. You want transparency, information. You don't need to know every detail of everything because things go wrong on projects in the background that you really don't need to know because they don't affect the outcome. It's something that the consultant or the vendor or the gig worker can handle. And so you don't want to know every detail. But you keep in mind that you want open communication and want to know what's going on and also want to see the progress. Things can change quickly in this environment too. So having those regular communication, whether it's through Slack, whether you do a Zoom meeting, whatever way you and the consultant, and that's another thing you need to define. I define upfront what is the best way to get a hold of the consultant, what is the best means of communication, and how does it work within also either my clients or my particular way of doing things. Thank you for listening, and I invite you to join me next week as we talk more about specific actions you can take to reach your own business goals. You can find my library of other inspiring podcasts like this one at onpointthinking.com. Again, thank you for listening. This is Jacqueline Holstead at On Point Conversations.